Hello everyone, welcome to ChurchMilitant.tv's special report. I'm Michael Vorish, your host, with two incredible guests. We've got a very good show for you. This is Michael Hitchborn from the American Life League and Rob Gasper from American Life League. And we're going to talk to you today about a months and months long investigation following on a couple years worth of ongoing investigations about the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. Now, the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, the CCHD, which is run by the bishops and that. Now, before we begin, I think it's probably we need to establish this isn't done out of any sort of malice or disrespect or anything. It's done out of a sense of, there's a wrong here that needs to be done.
Well, absolutely. In fact, we have worked very closely with several bishops on the information that we've been providing them, helping them to understand exactly what the problem is and to help them see what's going on. Because the bishops are busy. Sure. They don't have time to investigate. They have to rely on their staff. And understanding that, we try our best just to try and engage them on a personal level and say, Your Excellency, there is a problem here and you need to know about it. So we've presented this information personally to several bishops, and they've been working hard to try and address the problem from within. But at the same time, they can't do everything individually either.
Sure. And I think something that's maybe a little difficult, or not maybe difficult, but people don't realize a bishop sort of wears two hats today. He's got all of his stuff in his diocese that he has to take care of, or his archdiocese, and then there's this sort of behemoth, USCCB, the big conference of bishops, and that really, the bishops have the responsibility for, but most of that work is sort of, parlayed off into the hands of lay people, and they're kind of making a lot of the shots, and then the bishops just sort of get the tip of the iceberg information for the most part, right?
For the most part,
is that a pretty fair depiction?
Absolutely.
So you've been sort of spearheading an awful lot of this research. You got a fantastic professional background in sorting through all of this stuff. Tell us kind of as just sort of a quick summary, what's involved in digging up all of this research, just from a technical standpoint.
Oh, wow. Yeah, what we use is a process called open source analysis. Mm-hmm. I was formally trained in that back in the 1990s. What we do here is it's not so much just data gathering. We've been told, the USCCB came out in one of their responses and said, this is just web-based research. No. What we're doing is we're gathering primary sources, doing credibility scoring, fact-checking, going through, if a grantee wrote a book, we'll take the book, we'll read it. It's not just everything we find on the internet. It's trying to find primary sources and things that are credible, and then analyzing this information so that we have a real clear picture of what we're looking at.
And what we're looking at after all of this research has produced a massive report that we actually can barely keep on the table. We have it down here. I'm going to get out of my seat here for a second and bring this up so that we can see this is the fruit. Hold on to your laptop. This is the fruit of your research. 2,000 pages of essentially lists of violations.
Yep.
Violations of sort of the moral code, the Bishops' Conference own rules they laid out on how this money is supposed to be dispersed. Let's leave this here for just a moment so it can sort of make a visual impact. Over 2,000 really, right?
Sure.
Over 2,000 pages.
Just to kind of juxtapose this for a second, our first report, I think the first thing that we ever sent to the bishops was maybe 40 or 50 pages long.
Mm-hmm. That was what, 3 years ago?
That was 3 years ago, 2009.
Right.
And or 2010 is when we sent the report. In 2011, our report was 200 pages long, and we thought, wow, this is long. And this year, because the CCHD, the staff at the CCHD has just absolutely stonewalled us on trying to make any real committed change or even to address some of the concerns we've been trying to point out, we dug as deeply into these groups as we possibly could. And what we found produced this.
I mean, we've sat the last couple of days here in the studio and gone over a lot of, certainly not all of it, but we've gone over a lot of the highlights that we're going to get into here in the show. But very quickly, what is the CCHD? Forget about these for a second. Just what is that office at the Bishops' Conference? What does it do?
The CCHD, well, it was formed in the late 1960s. It's a project of the USCCB. The main point of it is supposed to marry both subsidiarity and solidarity, two important principles of Catholic social teaching. And on paper, what CCHD is supposed to do is go to the local communities and say there's a problem. Let's say that in a city, in a block, the fire hydrants don't work. and this is causing somebody's house burned down because there's a structural problem here. And to get this addressed, individual people have trouble doing that on their own. So what CCHD does is it helps the individuals there form an organization, and then they are able to present their concerns together to the city and get things fixed. That's what it's supposed to be doing.
So it's sort of the good version of community organizing.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And one of the ways it does that is by giving these groups money.
Exactly.
And that's sort of the whole CCHD grant. We have a shot, I hope we do, of the envelope from this year's collection. And I think it's important that this may ring the bell with lots of Catholics. If you're sitting in the pews, not every diocese, but like 90+% of the dioceses take up this collection the Sunday before Thanksgiving. And the envelope you'll see looks like the one we're showing you on the screen right now, hopefully. I'm pretty sure we have a copy of it. And people throw in. So that collection takes up, what, $7, $8, $9 million a year, roughly?
Roughly, yeah.
And then the CCHD's office, their job is to sit down and go through all of these different groups from all over the country who've made application for these grants to get the free money. And then the CCHD goes through it and then hands the money out based on the applications and that sort of thing. Good overview?
Yeah.
Pretty close. One thing that needs to be pointed out, because some people will look at the report and they'll say, well, I'm glad to see that my diocese isn't listed there, so therefore it must be okay to give to my diocese. The problem is that an individual diocese will collect the money for the CCHD and then they only retain 25% of all the money collected. 75% goes to the national CCHD
And gets doled out.
And gets doled out into this.
Right. Okay. Well, so, all right, I think we've got a nice little establishment there. It's pretty easy to understand. So you've put together your report, and the gist of your report, essentially, as I've got my notes here, right? There were, in the 2011-2012 year, there were 192 grants given out.
Yes.
Yes.
And that divvied up about a little more than $7.5 million between 192 different grantees. With those 192 grantees, you found what?
We found 74 individual grantees that were in some way promoting abortion, homosexuality, birth control, and even Marxism.
74 out of 192?
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
close to 40%.
It's 38%, actually.
Now, when all of this news broke, because I know, we've known each other, we've had a great relationship for the last 3 years, and when there were a couple of bishops, one in particular, will remain nameless so we can stay charitable, who blew up at us for telling this 3 years ago and said, no, that's not right. That, you're not, I'm not going to believe what you guys are saying. I mean, it's just, you don't have to believe it. I mean, here it is. It's not like, we're having an opinion on which color's better for the room. It's like either the money went to them or they didn't. And they do these abortion or whatever activities, or they don't. It's just a pretty simple, shut and closed, open and closed case. What sort of reaction have you gotten based on your research? What have you gotten? I know you traveled around during the summer and saw a number of bishops, and some of whom were probably on the range, very open and receptive. Others, oh gosh, this is horrible. But tell us about that a little bit. What have you gotten as you're bringing this to the bishops privately?
Every meeting that I've ever had with a bishop, whenever I sit down and actually explain what we have found, the bishop has always been shocked and appalled, both at the same time. He will then tell us, this is very disturbing information. Right. And he'll say, a lot of times I've been asked, well, what do we do? And my response is, Excellency, the real problem is that personnel is policy. And as we have been presenting this information, the disinformation coming out in public, attacking our research and attacking our findings, has been injurious to the truth. And so the bishop has been the bishops that we've spoken with have been very open and thankful. In fact, I've had several bishops thank me personally for bringing the matter to his attention. What they've done on the inside is, I don't know. But I do know also that a lot of the bishops that I've spoken with have also withdrawn from the CCHD collection.
Do you think there is a, certainly, if the bishops say they're shocked, appalled, didn't know this or didn't know it anywhere to the extent that the research has shown, obviously we believe them and take them at their word as we should. Do you think there is a resistance, not among the bishops themselves, but their staffs and things like that to this, that they essentially want you guys to shut up and go away?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, while we were conducting our research this summer, one of the things that we did, the CCHD last year, highly criticized us because initially we presented them with the information, National CCHD, and then they went in public and said, oh, and they never contacted the local dioceses. So we said, well, that's what we'll do then. We contacted the local dioceses and started talking to them about the things that we found in their diocese. Well, Rob was the one initially contacting these directors. He got a really nasty letter from one of them.
Yeah, tell us about this. I think that, let's keep bottom lining this for folks, because, we've been in this kind of on your guys' coattails here at Church Militant. You guys have been sort of leading the charge on getting all the research, so we're thick into the weeds. Always step out. What's the issue here? The issue is that Catholic money collected in that collection plate, in that CCHD collection, is going to groups that give money to abortion groups, same-sex marriage groups, pro-contraception groups, Planned Parenthood associated groups, everything across the board. That's the issue. That's the issue. So when you bring this up, as Mike just said, when you bring this up to the local CCHD people within a diocese, what are you getting?
Well, let's back up a little bit here. There were 46 dioceses involved that had grantees we flagged. Each of those dioceses got a letter to the bishop saying, all right, here's what we found, gave him a summary, and then we also carbon copied the local CCHD directors, gave them that letter, and then I followed up with emails, phone calls, seeing if they wanted the full packet of information. More than half of the dioceses responded and took the full information, and of those, we got some positive responses where some of the dioceses took action. We also got some negative responses. The one Michael was referencing earlier, there was I'm not going to name the diocese, but the diocesan director there and his regional CCHD coordinator wrote a somewhat interesting letter criticizing some of the work we've done and stating things in ways that I wouldn't want to repeat. But that was an anomaly.
Very Christian of him.
Yeah, most of the responses were positive of the responses we got, but also over half of the dioceses did not respond. So, well, that would be about I'd say about 40% of the dioceses did not respond.
Wow, well, that's pretty high. I mean, look, if you're working in think about it, again, what's the bottom line? You're helping administer, the corporal works of mercy of your diocese. There's something horrible going on. You were told about it, and you ignore it.
Well, and quite honestly, in a couple of cases, and again, we're not going to repeat names or dioceses, but in a couple of cases, we were contacted by somebody other than the CCHD director who said, please don't send the information to this individual because we're not sure that they're giving us the full story.
See. All right, let's step back for a moment. 30,000-foot view. This is all part of, in some sense, some cases, it's sort of the tip of the spear on the whole social justice, social action, peace and justice madness that has gone on in the church for the last 40 years, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So you have, and I think this is a lot of things that Catholics, look, lots of Catholics, they're not involved in the church stuff day to day. They're raising their families, going to their jobs, doing that stuff. They just hear this stuff kind of, in passing. There has been for the last 40 years or so this tremendous push to kind of jettison moral teaching, the moral teachings of the church in favor of advancing a kind of humanist, secular nirvana kind of approach to, and it gets slapped with the label social justice and, Catholic social teaching. Well, it's not. You guys know that, we know that, lots of people at home may not know that. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into some specifics. We'll go through very quickly, break apart first. You've taken these 74 violators, if you want to call them that, and broken them into two groups. What are the two groups?
The two groups that we've broken them into are those that, CCHD, to back up a little bit, CCHD's guidelines, they've broken their guidelines, and that's what we were following, and that's what we based our research on. The guidelines, first of all, there's those guidelines against direct action of a grantee. So if a grantee itself is promoting abortion, contraception, homosexuality, any of those things, then that's one category. The second category it's a new guideline that the CCHD put into place after the review and renewal in 2010 when they
Which was a result of our research.
This is true, where they were trying to clean up the CCHD a bit. And this guideline covers coalition memberships. It's not just being part of a coalition that has other bad members. It's being part of a coalition that itself is pursuing abortion, homosexuality, Marxism, any of those things that that the Catholic Church says, no, don't do. Right. And so we've broken this down. We found 27 of the grantees directly violated CCHD guidelines, and 45 were involved in coalitions that were going against CCHD guidelines.
Okay, so the 27 groups, we'll talk about them first when we come back, not all 27, we'll just give you a flavor of it, but
Yes.
just so people are clear, here are groups, we're going to name names, here are groups, name places, name everything, and your collection plate money from the CCHD goes into CCHD headquarters. They get an application from some group here. They give them $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, and that group goes and spends money directly on abortion, whatever. Is that right?
Yep, absolutely.
Stay with us. We'll be right back, and we'll name some names and show you some things that are going on that might not be pleasant, but you got to know, so it'll stop. We'll be right back.
From ChurchMilitant.tv's new series, Right Reason, Dr. Charles Rice explains,
Pope John Paul said faith and reason are like two wings on which we rise to the truth.
become a premium member today to gain the right reason to understand your Catholic faith.
Hello and welcome back to our special report with our very special guests from American Life League, Michael Hitchborn, Rob Gasper, who have done all of this research on how your Catholic money is going to groups that support abortion, same-sex marriage, pornography. I mean, go down the list, right?
Yep.
Everything,
Yep.
everything
yeah.
essentially. So we spoke in the first break about what it is. We set it up. Let's just get right to it. Give us the first group. We have a little list here. There's 27 of them. We've just pulled out kind of 8 roughly.
Sure. Yep.
To
Yep.
go through. But by the way, you will find all of these in this report. We've attached a link to the show, to the page the show is running on. You don't have to print out 2,000 pages. You can just go on and read it separately of yourself. But if you want to look at your own diocese, it's there. And again, as Mike said, not everything in the world is in here, just what they were able to pull together. So, but it's absolutely worth the read. Catholics need to know about this. You need to make your determination before that collection comes rolling around this year. Are you going to give anything to it? And then it's the end of the day. That's kind of what this is. So, do you want your $60,000 going to? Who's the first one?
Well, the first one we have here is Somos un Pueblo Unido, which we warned the CCHD about last year.
Now they're in Santa Fe,
They're
New
in
Mexico.
Santa Fe, New Mexico. They got $60,000. And one of the things that we pointed out to them, we told the CCHD staff, look, they received a grant from the Catalyst Fund. Okay, the Catalyst Fund only gives money to reproductive justice organizations.
Abortion.
Okay, abortion, birth control, okay,
kind
the
of
whole
stuff,
gamut.
right.
Yeah. We also pointed out that they received a grant from something called the New Mexico City Community Foundation, and on that website they were listed as a reproductive justice organization. So Somos un Pueblo Unido was identified as a reproductive justice group
By other groups.
By other groups,
Right.
and so we pointed this out to the CCHD staff, and the response we got was
In Washington,
in
D.C.
Washington D.C. Yeah.
Yes.
And the response we got was, well, I'm not exactly sure how you handle a situation where a group receives money from an organization. I mean, Mother Teresa took money from the mob. So, well, what we did, we saw that they got another grant this year. And we said, okay, if we're going to really figure this out, we've got to dig even deeper. So we went through Somos un Pueblo Unido's website. We looked at their newsletters. We found that in 2008, they had a December newsletter where they were promoting PFLAG, which is parents and families and friends of lesbians and gays.
right.
Okay. We also found that.
That's the actual group itself doing that.
Oh yeah, this was Somos un Pueblo that did that. We also found that they have a radio show.
And one interesting point here. In the year before, we noticed that they had this radio, that they were running this radio show on their website, and there was a list of maybe 50 or 60 episodes. One of them that was missing at the time was when they interviewed an organization called Young Women United, and that was very curious. We were never able to listen to it. But this year, and I'll let
They
you
had
talk
it,
about
yeah.
this, we saw that they interviewed that group again. So what did we find?
And this time they actually put their episode back up on or up on their website. So we listened to it. It's a half-hour episode. In fact, I'd like to play an audio clip if we may. But what you'll hear is towards the end of the show, they're interviewing somebody from Young Women United. They're talking about the excellent work that they do. The executive director for Somos, by the way, is the host of the radio show.
Right.
And so she's
This is direct tying.
This is direct tying. So the executive director is talking to Young Women United, talking about the impressive work that they do, saying they do tremendous work, they do great things. And of course, this is after she describes all this work that she does for reproductive justice. Towards the end of the show, the lady from Young Women United starts talking about one of the coalitions that they're a part of and the great work that the coalition is doing, specifically how they worked to prevent parental notification laws on abortion from actually making it into legislation.
And you were listening to that, didn't she?
Yeah.
You applaud it by saying that's tremendous.
That's great.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
tremendous.
In fact, you'll
right.
hear that if we can just play that clip right now.
But we're using examples of other states to see how we can impact change in New Mexico. So, for example, one of our partners in Strong Families, Color, Colorado Latinas Organizing for Reproductive Justice, they have fought on many occasions parental notification in the legislature. So, that youth going to abortion clinics would have to notify their parents. So they have defeated that many times in a conservative House and Senate in Colorado.
That's great.
And so we're using examples like that for all sorts of different reasons.
Okay, well there you go. There's the proof in the pudding. That's that executive director is the executive director of that group that got $60,000
Yep.
Exactly.
of Catholic
Absolutely.
money.
Yeah.
How about next? Got a group here called Parent Voices. Parent Voices is in Oakland, California.
You want to take this
Rob,
one?
you want to take the lead on that one?
Okay. Well, Parent Voices, interesting group out of Oakland. We, just to keep this short, Parent Voices screened a movie at an LGBT center.
Called the Spectrum Center.
The Spectrum Center.
Just lesbian, gay, bisexual,
transgender.
right.
Yes, and the movie is called La Mission. L.A. Mission, La Mission. And this movie is interesting in that it seems to be a homosexual propaganda piece about a tough individual and his son out in La Mission in California. And is that Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And this man, well, we can show you the clip from the trailer. This man's son happens to find out that he's a homosexual and gets into a homosexual relationship. And then in the movie,
The tough father,
The macho
beats
father
him
has
up,
to be
and
persuaded.
then
Yes.
and then
this was
something
actually in the end a good
something-
thing.
Right, and it talks about the change of heart that the father has towards his homosexual son. But what was interesting, not so much the movie, but that it was screened at the LGBT Center and being used as a piece of homosexual propaganda.
The thing about low riding, we don't really go anywhere. We just take our time getting there, you know what I'm saying? Low and slow. Yo, what up, Che? Trying to make $1 out of 15 cents, you know what I'm saying? I might even ride shotgun, let him drive.
The king's finally gonna give up the throne.
Hey, man, I said drive, not wear the crown.
What are you gonna tell him?
Make something up, I guess.
What's it this time? Another study group?
You saying I'm lying?
Maybe even tell him the truth.
Want you out of my house now. From now on, you're dead to me. I hate you.
Hey, Cinderella, I'm talking to you.
Mr. Rivera, there's been an incident involving your son.
I have been around enough men like you who use violence and intimidation to get what they want, and I am done with that.
You're asking me if I think God's punishing you. God don't have to punish him. We do that one good enough on our own.
Don't you read the Bible?
You got to love that.
But it's not just that piece. I mean, that piece of information alone is telling. I mean, it says, okay, they seem to have some sort of connection with the Spectrum Center. They seem to be promoting this movie. So we looked a little bit deeper, and one of the things that Parent Voices did on its own website, it said that it is on the coordinating committee of the California Partnership, which is a branch of the Center for Community Change. And the interesting thing about that, so when they say that they're on the coordinating committee, that means that they're a part of the leadership of the California Partnership.
Right.
So they're proud of that. Well, when we looked
that fought against Proposition 8.
Oh, well, it did even more than that. It actually fought against H.R. 3,
right,
which was designed specifically to defund Planned Parenthood.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent a letter to Barbara Boxer saying, please oppose H.R. 3 because we want to make sure abortion is still legal and open for everybody.
Right.
So
again, this is the group directly doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the question of they happen to be in a room and inside that room someone else is doing
right.
it. This is them doing it.
They're on the coordinating committee of the California Partnership, which has itself taken very strong positions in support of Planned Parenthood and other kinds of family planning and even homosexuality.
How much money did they get?
They got
My notes,
45,000.
45,000,
yeah.
45. So far, just two groups have gotten over $100,000 of money that you, me, well, would have.
Would have, yeah.
Put in the plate on Sunday in that envelope.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Right. Next group, Community Action Board. They are in, where are they? Monterey, California.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, Community Action Board, they got $30,000. And one of the things that's very interesting about this, we started looking into the group. We just looked at their website. That's one of the first things we always do. And usually you find something buried deep within a website in order to get to what's really going on. Right. This one, we took a look at their mission and history. And right there on the mission and history page, it says, in addition to the accomplishments of this effort, CAB, Community Action Board, also successfully pushed for establishment of bilingual education in public schools and family planning services that are now operated by the County of Santa Cruz. So we gave this information to the CCHD director out there, which we did with all of the directors that we found problems with. That information invariably was kicked up to national. And when we looked recently, that page has been scrubbed. It's no longer on their website.
Why?
Yeah, good question.
What
What are they hiding? What are they afraid of?
Sure.
But it's not just that. So, again, we dig deeper. What does it mean that they support family planning services and all that stuff? We found that CAB, Community Action Board, is a supporter of something called Safer Sex Machines, which I think, as far as I can tell, is some sort of...
It's a condom dispensal unit that's placed in bathrooms and bars where youth frequent.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say something here also for the, for the people watching at home. What we're going through here is a very condensed version of the things we have found with each of these groups.
Yep.
Yes.
First of all, this isn't all of the groups, and second of all, we're just for the sake of the show, we've only got an hour. You can't do this in an hour.
Right, yeah.
So we're just going through a couple of highlights of each of these groups. There's much more with each one of them. So let's move on to Empower DC in Washington, D.C. This was a fun group. We were kind of, I was sort of like, really? When we were going through this.
This is just a head scratcher for us. The group got $50,000, and again, we were just going through the organization's website. They have a blog called Grassroots Media DC.
And the blog seems to be just about the main thing this organization does. We couldn't, for the life of
really
us,
find anything that they actually do. Yeah. They just have a blog. So we're reading their blog. And one of the things that we found on their blog, it promoted this guide. And I don't even know what else to describe it as. It's a guide. The guide's title is Hey Girl, spelled Grrrl. What time is it? Time to know your rights. And then they say, this is a great guide. It's geared towards youth. You should feel free to download and distribute it at will. So we were like, well, what is this? What are they promoting? And
laughing because we saw it yesterday.
Well, it's
not even funny. I mean, it's so
know,
terrible
it's like you sit there going, seriously?
Right. Page 9. The title of the page, Staying Safer with Common Charges. And it gives a list of charges that a woman could possibly be charged with for some reason. And then it has a list of do and don't. Now, don't never once says don't do the crime. Okay? I'll just get that right out there. Under trespassing, it says have a lookout and be aware of the signs. Think of who you know who can vouch for you. It's written strangely too. It has a section on car sex where it says make sure that you have tinted windows and get in and get out. Under solicitation, which is prostitution, it says to wear sensible shoes. It also says, do what you need to do to be in the right frame of mind, which is, I just don't
think that means if you're going to be in,
Right.
soliciting, don't be high.
Right, I guess.
I think.
I'm not exactly sure what it means, but then it says don't carry a lot of cash on you, not don't prostitute yourself.
Well, in drug possession, I mean, I'm looking
Drug
at this here.
possession, this is crazy. Okay.
They're telling you
It
how
says-
to duck out on felonies.
Right.
Basically.
Not don't commit them. When you get caught and arrested for them, here's what
It says
you
if
do.
you're in possession of drugs, take a cab if you have a lot of stuff on you. And then don't keep all of your stash on you all at once.
This group got how much?
$50,000.
$50,000 of Catholic money thrown in the plate
Yep.
at the annual CCHD collection on that Sunday before Thanksgiving. $50,000 of that money went to that group.
Yep, and we found other places on its website where it was supporting homosexuality, and it even called against a budget bill that was going on in D.C. specifically because it would have barred federal funding for abortion. All of that's been removed from their website for some strange reason.
But I'm having a sinking feeling here that you two very intrepid investigators have happened to take screenshots of those and have that information.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah, by the way, any of you like crazy groups out here, if you're going to put the stuff on your website, consider it that it's public notice even if you scrub it.
Yep.
Next group, Syracuse, New York, the Syracuse Cooperative Federal Credit Union. Now, credit unions calling up the Catholic Church asking for grant money? Shouldn't it be the other way around?
Well, yeah, talk a little bit about the economic grants versus
Right.
the
This is
community
a
organizing grants.
majority of the grants go to community development. Those are the community organizing grants. However, a smaller subset of CCHD grants go to what are known as economic development grants. These are a lot of times small-sized credit unions and other things that give microloans to help the poor get established in business or other things that bring them out of poverty. That's a good thing. But in this case, we found that there's a particular most of the economic development grants that we've ever looked at were okay, at least on a as far as the guidelines are concerned. But this is one case where there's a credit union that seemed to have a different sort of purpose than usual. I'll let you explain this one.
We looked at the founding vision. And it stated right out from the get-go that the reason they were created to begin with was to serve what they called the underprivileged community, and they identified the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community among that.
Because gays and lesbians can't go to a bank and get a loan?
Well, that's what I don't know why they would specify that, because it seems to me that everybody is able to. Yeah. So I don't know why they would specify that, but they said that was their purpose.
And this is in the Diocese of Syracuse?
Yes.
Correct.
And how much money did they get?
They got $40,000.
$40,000.
Yep.
So far, we're looking just in the few we've talked about, 60, 45, 30, that's 135, another 50 is 185, 200, whatever, going on $250,000. How many Catholic families are really struggling in this kind of economy, trusting that when that collection plate comes by, they put in their 20 or their 40, maybe their $50.
But that money might go to help them.
Yeah. And here it is going to groups. This is,
Well,
at some point your blood starts to boil when you really get into this.
Well, and the Federal Credit Union liked Gay Marriage New York on its Facebook page for some reason. We looked at their newsletters, found in 2002 that they gave a donation to Planned Parenthood, and this is where.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Your money went through this group straight to Planned Parenthood.
And then we looked at the leadership, and we saw that the president, whose name is Julie Gozan, gave a donation to Planned Parenthood, and the co-founder, treasurer, and CEO is a guy named Ron Ehrenreich. And I looked him up, and it's interesting. He has his own Wikipedia page because he was the 1988 vice presidential candidate for the Socialist Party.
Oh, good. Socialism.
He started a socialist party in New York called CNY Reds, and his email address there is smashstate@earthlink.net.
Good. Now, might as well throw in socialism. You're supporting every other evil. Might as well make socialism and communism on your list. Let's move along here to, right in this diocese, Moses. Yep. Moses. Not the Moses we all think of, though, right?
No, this is an affiliate of the Gamaliel Foundation, which we'll be covering later. But just in and of itself, MOSES stands for Metropolitan Organizing Strategy Enabling Strength. They got $25,000 here in Detroit. Now, MOSES...
Again, so this is a community organizing group right here in Detroit.
Yes, this
the
is in Detroit.
Archdiocese of Detroit getting 25 grand of people's money from around the country.
Yeah, now the story with MOSES, I guess we'll start with the executive director, Poncella Hardaway. She's an interesting personality. Can you fill them in on Poncella?
Oh, sure, absolutely. The first thing that we found when we looked into her name is that she participated in this conference for the National Organization for Women. This
Ding,
country,
ding, ding.
yeah, exactly, a big red flag. They were talking about all kinds of things about abortion at this conference, and so we thought, okay, there's something not right here. As we dug even further, what we found is that representing her organization, MOSES, she participated in a fundraising event for something called MI List, which is kind of like Emily's List. Yeah. Its sole purpose is to get pro-abortion women brought on to elevated to public office.
Right.
Its sole purpose.
Yeah, it's Emily's List is a nonprofit with that goal: get pro-abortion Democratic women elected. It stands for early money is like yeast, and there are some state sort of subsidiaries of it, and here in Michigan it's called MI List. So that money is collected specifically to get pro-abortion Democratic women legislators elected in the state of Michigan. And she signed on to it.
Not just signed on to it, we have a picture of her at their fundraising event, and underneath it identifies her as Poncella Hardaway, Executive Director for MOSES.
Not much left to doubt here, is there?
No, there really isn't.
They got $25,000, MOSES, right here in Detroit. Okay, Cleghorn, where this group is from, Worcester, Massachusetts.
Yes, Cleghorn. They got $30,000, and what we have here on Cleghorn, just to keep this short, they were sponsoring teen AIDS, hip-hop, breakdancing, AIDS prevention workshops, and we looked into this a bit, and it does turn out that the teen AIDS program does promote condoms, but that was bad enough. But we also found that when we were looking through Planned Parenthood's application for Title X funding for 2011, and unfortunately for Cleghorn, we found that their name was listed as a community partner with Planned Parenthood for the following year, which means that Planned Parenthood will be giving Cleghorn brochures, postcards, and other things to promote Planned Parenthood at the Cleghorn Center, and Cleghorn will be referring people to Planned Parenthood as part of this community partnership program.
30,000 Catholic dollars?
Yep.
30,000.
Yes.
All right, we'll take one more before we head to the break. This one is from, where are we here? Philadelphia, where Archbishop Chaput is now stationed. Women's Community Revitalization Project, $35,000.
$35,000. Now,
what's bad about these folks?
Well, we have told the CCHD about Women's Community Revitalization Project for the last 3 years. We mentioned them in our first report, where we pointed out that they received a donation from something called Women's Way.
And that first report was going on 3 years ago now,
yes.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah. So it's not like they don't know about this.
That's right. We told them they received a grant from Women's Way. The reason that's important is Women's Way does not give money to organizations unless they fully support the full spectrum of women's reproductive justice and rights. It states that in their guidelines. It's right there, bold and front and center.
Can't get the money unless you sell your soul.
We also saw that Women's Community Revitalization Project was a member of Women Vote PA, who stated as their platform was to promote same-sex marriage, homosexuality, birth control, and reproductive rights. And well, after we pointed that out, of course, their name got removed from the website, oddly.
Or not so oddly.
Yeah, right. So we've given them more and more information on this over the last couple of years and said, there's a problem here. This is bad enough. This isn't just a red flag. This is bad. And consistently, they continue to receive a grant. So we started looking into the leadership. And we saw that the executive director is a woman named Nora Lichtash. Now, what is particularly condemning about her membership or her leadership of this organization, she signed a public, what is this, a petition. That is directly opposed to the U.S. bishops in regards to the HHS mandate. And I just want to read a quote here because from this petition, it says, "Tell the Department of Health and Human Services to listen to women, not the Catholic bishops, and mandate free access to birth control." She signed that.
This is quite the job. You run an organization that gets money, from the Catholic bishops, and then once you have that money, you turn around and you say, hey, oppose the Catholic bishops.
Yep. Well, and then we found that
Good work, I guess, if you can get it, right?
I don't know how that works, really. I mean, I don't know why anybody would fund an organization that's working directly opposed to them.
Well, what's particularly disturbing about this is that certainly in this case, the CCHD national headquarters has known about these people because you guys have told them.
Yep.
Yes.
For consecutive years. We're going to go to a break. Let me ask you one question as we go out. Do you think, you mentioned, when you got in touch with on the local level, that lots of times you didn't hear anything, but sometimes you got cooperation and people saying, send us more information, and ostensibly that something will change for the better, or at least that's the hope. On the national level, what has been the reaction to this?
Well, we attempted to set up a meeting with the executive director of CCHD at the national level, and
That's
this
Ralph McLeod.
That's correct. And well, what we wanted to do, first we went to the locals, and then we wanted to get nationals' take on everything and what the final determination was. We spent a month trying to schedule this meeting, and then finally it was scheduled, it was on paper, we were willing and ready to go to discuss all of this with the national CCHD director. And unfortunately, 3 days before the meeting, he canceled the meeting, saying, we see no reason to meet at this time.
And that was it?
That was it.
And
That's the last
every
report.
attempt since then, that was the beginning of September?
That's correct.
So here we are now, moving into November.
Yep.
The time we're taping this, no communication back, no let's try to reschedule. Weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks have gone by. You've made attempts.
Yes.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. We'll be right back right after this.
Michael Voris launched his apologetics mission with his groundbreaking series, The One True Faith. This series, with over 100 hours of Orthodox commentary, covers every possible Catholic topic in tremendous detail. To explore The One True Faith, sign up for a premium membership today.
Hello everyone, Michael Voris here from churchmilitant.tv, welcoming you back with our guests Michael Hitchborn, Rob Gasper from American Life League, who have produced, once again, this 2,000 pages of report on all of the misappropriation or mishandling, or whatever you want to say it, of Catholic money donated to the CCHD that is supposed to be going toward helping get people out of poverty, helps maybe alter, change the structures that encourage poverty and sort of break that cycle. It's a 40-plus-year-old program. Very quickly, give us a recap on this again at the very top. There are 192 different groups from all over the country appealed to the CCHD for a slice of about $7.5 million. How did that get broken up with regard to this?
Well, the out of 192 groups, 74 of them we have found problems with, serious problems. That's about 37-38%. Same thing with the money. Breaks out to about 38% of the money. I believe it was 2.6 million, 2.8 million.
Yeah, almost 2.9. So for purposes, $7.5 million was collected, $3 million's given to groups that are serious problems.
Yeah.
Okay. The last section we talked about groups that are directly, involved in this thing. You hand them the money and they're doing something bad with it. Okay. There's another type of group where they're involved in a coalition.
Right.
The group itself is involved in a coalition. Explain to us, Rob, what is a coalition and why is it a problem?
Yes. Well, just take a step back here too. When we flagged coalition memberships in the past, a lot of times in the reporting that is given by friends of the CCHD is that, well, we're just doing guilt by association, that the grantees just in an organization that has just by chance other members of a coalition that are doing things like Planned Parenthood. Because we have had cases where a grantee is part of a coalition doing just normal things like going out and pushing for some good legislation, and Planned Parenthood happens to be a member of it for whatever reason. We don't have a problem with that. at least as far as the CCHD grant guidelines are concerned. What we pushed for and what CCHD finally adopted was a guideline saying, if they're part of a coalition, if they're lending their name, their money, and their activities to an organization that is itself pushing for activities against CCHD guidelines, they can't do that. That's against CCHD guidelines. That's what the guideline states.
It says they won't fund organizations that are
exactly.
members of those kinds of coalitions.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you found, what do we have here?
45.
45 on top of the 27, some of which we talked about in the last
Yep.
group. This is an entirely different type of, a violation,
Right.
where we have 45 groups who have aligned themselves. They're involved with other groups that are in a coalition, and the coalition is advancing something rotten.
Yep.
Exactly.
Something evil and rotten. Okay.
And in some cases, this actually involves the exchange of money,
Sure.
where they're paying membership dues.
Do you find that frequently?
It's about 50-50.
Okay, so it's not uncommon.
No, it's not uncommon.
Okay, let's go to our first group. We had a little question on how you actually pronounce it, but how did we decide?
Gamaliel is...
Gamaliel.
Yeah,
Gamaliel,
yeah.
okay. All right,
The Gamaliel
Gamaliel, named
Foundation.
after, most likely, the rabbi who taught St. Paul, mentioned in the chapter 5 of the Acts of the Apostles. What about them? And they've got a kind of a special thing here, right, that you found out much more about as well.
Yes.
So, Gamaliel.
Okay, the basic rundown of it is that we found, as we were investigating, that the Gamaliel Foundation is a member, a founding member of something called the Fair Immigration Reform Movement.
Firm.
Firm.
Okay.
And Firm, we looked into Firm, we wanted to know what they were. We saw that Firm in 2010, March of 2010, organizationally called for the inclusion of same-sex relationships in immigration reform.
Okay.
In other words, it was a backdoor way of trying to recognize same-sex marriage, same-sex unions, couples, that sort of thing. And they even called them LGBT families, and they were saying, we don't want to split these families up, so that they wanted that included in immigration reform. From there, they could then push for same-sex marriage recognition because it's already being recognized in immigration reform.
Sure.
So it's a backdoor way of getting that recognized.
Exactly.
Gamaliel was a founding member of Firm. They were on the steering committee of Firm. Well, we didn't find that they were on the steering committee initially. What we found is that they were a founding member. So we flagged them and we sent that information on to the CCHD directors.
Hold on a second, for people who don't know the kind of the inside lingo, what's the difference between being a founding member and a steering committee member?
Okay.
What is that?
Being a founding member means that you as an organization got together with a couple of other organizations to create this coalition.
Okay.
Being on the steering committee means that you are helping to guide the actions of the organization itself.
Okay, so that is much more involved.
Yes.
Be a founding member, you just sort of lend your name to it. You might show up to a board meeting once a year.
Right.
Steering means you're there on the phone, sending emails, let's do this, making decisions kind of on the ground.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so Gamaliel is on they're founding, but they're also on the steering committee.
Right, which we found later.
Okay.
We found that later. Now, Rob was the one communicating with all of the CCHD directors around the country, and so he sent that information on to the organization, or to the dioceses that had Gamaliel grantees in their diocese. And then he started to get some responses back.
Yes, August 8th especially, I got a response from one of the dioceses in particular, which stated that they had sent the information to National CCHD saying, okay, is there a problem with Gamaliel membership? Is there a problem here? And National CCHD responded and said, well, we looked into it. We spoke with Gamaliel. Gamaliel is claiming that they broke all ties.
Severed, wasn't that the word?
Yes, severed all ties with the Fair Immigration Reform Network firm in 2010, before any of these grantees were funded.
And they said they did that specifically because of Firm's public statement in favor of same-sex unions.
So Gamaliel is telling the Bishops' Conference,
Yes.
CCHD office specifically, we're done with them.
Yes.
We have nothing to do with them.
we left
That's
them in 2010.
They took it a step further. They actually gave the National CCHD a copy of a letter that they allegedly sent Firm in May of 2010 saying that they're ending their relationship. So we did a little bit more digging. We wanted, trust but verify. So we figured, well, let's take a look. we went to Gamaliel's website, where we initially got their membership list anyway, saying that we're a member of firm. That was gone. I dug a little bit deeper and I found a root file folder that contained several files under something called Firm Strategy Session. And all of these files in that folder were dated 2011. And what it contained
the year after they supposedly had ended the relationship.
And what it contained, in these files, you had a membership list that listed Ana Garcia Ashley, the president of Gamaliel, as a member of firm. Also, Juan Soto, who is, let's see, what is his position? The Civil Rights of Immigrants Director with Gamaliel. And he was also listed on the firm membership list, and it says effective December 2011. And then we found
a year and a half after they supposedly ended their relationship.
And then we found the little bios of each of the members of firm, and the one for Gamaliel, again dated 2011, says that they were on the executive committee. Then we submitted that information on to Gamaliel as well.
And one other
or to
one other
CCHD.
piece of evidence there was, I think actually most telling is the is the conference call notes that we
The
found.
membership meeting minutes.
Yes. Yes, the conference call was held between firm and its members. And this was from what,
December 9th.
December 9th of 2011. And Ana Garcia Ashley, the president of Gamaliel, was listed as a participant, not only as a participant, but also Gamaliel was nominated for executive committee membership at that
2012.
time. For 2012. And if they, I have to say it here, if Gamaliel is not part of firm, I don't understand what all this means then. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, yeah, because this comes, a year and a half, 2 years after, with plans into the future, into this current year. Yeah, it's, but from the CCHD and the diocese perspective, the local dioceses around the country are operating under the assumption that this relationship has been cut off because the CCHD national office is telling them that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so either the CCHD office is saying something that there either isn't true or they're just badly misinformed on, or Gamaliel is misrepresenting and lying that they actually ended this relationship. So either they're lying or the CCHD office is lying and they're passing this information on to the diocese. You know the dioceses aren't lying, right? Because they've actually shared with you the letter.
Yes.
That did not come from them, but came from national.
Yes.
So the local dioceses are just going on what they've been told.
For the most part, yeah, I would say that
Yes.
that's true.
It's quite disturbing. They're lying. So here's a group that's been told stop it. They say, oh yeah, we stopped it, and they kept going.
Now this is important because 22 CCHD grantees are affiliates of the Gamaliel Foundation. Now, one diocese wrote us back and said, we've spoken with our local affiliate. We don't think that they individually have done anything wrong, so we have asked them to withhold their membership and their membership dues to Gamaliel in order to come into compliance. And if that happens with the other 21 grantees, then so be it.
It's a good outcome, sure.
So at least one diocese took the information seriously. Well, after we sent this information, the follow-up information that says that, look, Gamaliel's claim that they were no longer a member of firm can't be true because of all this other information we found, all of a sudden all the different parts that we were looking at on Gamaliel's website are locked out by password protection, and the CCHD shortly after that cut off communication. That was when we lost our meeting with the CCHD. Can't call it cause and effect. Maybe something else came up, but the timing was interesting.
Well, I'll call it cause and effect. How's that? Let's move on to another group here. We have the Take Action Minnesota.
Okay, Take Action Minnesota. We flagged this. There are, let's see, how many grantees did I say are a member of?
Take Action.
1, 2, 3, 4 grantees. Okay.
Again, this is another coalition, going back to our earlier discussion of what a coalition is.
Yep.
Okay.
Centro de Trabajadores Unidos, the Land Stewardship Project, and the Somali, that's 3 members.
Yes.
Somali Action Alliance. All Minnesota-based groups are member of this Take Action Minnesota. Some of them are even on the board of Take Action Minnesota, which means the relationship's more intimate. And Take Action Minnesota itself started rallying its members in support of same-sex marriage, which is directly opposed to what Archbishop Neinstedt's been doing, trying to fight hard against same-sex marriage. And here we have at least 3 CCHD grantees in Minnesota that are working in direct opposition to that.
So these 3 grantees are getting probably tens of thousands each. That's a safe bet.
Yep.
So the numbers right there, but whatever, the tens of thousands combined. They are directly affiliated with this group, again, fighting against, with Catholic money, a Catholic initiative.
Right, and remember, these groups are not just members, some of them are even on the board, which means they're making decisions.
Right.
And
paying dues.
And paying dues. I don't know if they're a dues-paying member of Take Action Minnesota, but I do know that as a board member, they're certainly helping with the decision-making.
Yeah, they're sitting around having meetings, figuring out strategies, running, putting programs together. That's what you do.
Now, one thing that's particularly important about this rallying for same-sex marriage is that Take Action Minnesota actually went out and hired field canvassers to get people to gather support for same-sex marriage. So it's not just, okay, let's go out and hold a rally. It's, let's go drum up support for same-sex marriage in the communities themselves. So they are directly acting against what Archbishop Neinstedt's trying to do, what the bishops are trying to do in defending the sanctity of marriage.
And in case anybody from any of these groups comes around and says, oh, we're going to sue you or blackball you, no, we're not. It's a free country. You're allowed to do what you want. However, there are guidelines from the groups you're getting money from.
Yep.
Whoever writes the check makes the law.
Right.
You're not allowed, you shouldn't be allowed to be doing this. And this is, the CCHD has its own. The bishops have their guidelines. You cannot give money to groups like this.
Well, and
they're giving the money to them.
Yeah, let's just be blunt. I mean, these groups don't have a right to Catholic money.
No, they don't. Of course they don't.
But they act that way.
Right. Next group, Community Shares. Where are they from?
Community Shares is all over the place.
Right. Community Shares takes different forms in different places. But each one does the similar same thing. It's a dues member-based organization. It's not so much an action coalition where it goes out and does stuff, but it's a funding coalition where grantees and other organizations are part of this. They all put money into the pot, and then Community Shares goes out and promotes those groups to bring in further donations, then divides it up equally. The problem is here that Community Shares, for the most part, was created to fund groups, the LGBT groups and reproductive rights groups. And so in most cases, and what we found in some of the Tennessee Community Shares organizations and some of the other ones, is that a lot of that money that is being put in by grantees is then being redistributed to reproductive rights groups and
just grossly pro-homosexual organizations, like the Cream City Foundation
and
PFLAG
and the LGBT Community Center in Milwaukee.
Let me ask you something. What do you say to people, some Catholic, people who just, regular lay people don't really know much about this. They're sort of hearing this for the first time, or maybe they caught a little wind of this, a year or two ago, and they're hearing some more detail right now. What's the big deal? I mean, look, doesn't PFLAG try to do some nice things and help people with, they find out their children are, gay or lesbian, and, some of these groups are, I mean, what's the big deal if some Catholic money goes towards these groups? I mean, aren't they all sort of working together to kind of help alleviate poverty and everything?
Well, the problem is that they're advocating for immorality. If you look at what the Catechism of the Catholic Church says, regarding homosexuality, it says that it is intrinsically evil and can never be supported as an act. And these organizations are trying to pass off an immorality as some sort of acceptable lifestyle.
And then also, just from a social justice standpoint too, if the goal here is to try to alleviate poverty and the structures that create poverty, the family is a structure that goes against poverty, that creates stability and and helps alleviate poverty. Now, when you're funding LGBT groups, that sort of activity, homosexuality and other things, breaks up family. Contraception breaks up the family. Those things, that's a direct attack against the family and therefore will cause more poverty. And the church recognizes that its moral mission, its social justice mission should be intertwined. Those things cannot be divorced.
And what's really happened, as we were saying kind of one point earlier in the show, there really has been kind of that close, what should be close intertwine and relationship has really been separated.
That's right.
Hasn't it?
Yeah.
By, look, call them what they are. They're dissidents in the church who simply do not like the church's moral teaching, so they ignore it or downplay it or just flat out disobey it, and they substitute in this sort of false morality to say, ooh, look at all the good work we're doing trying to help the poor.
Well,
and they substitute it.
Let's talk about the CCHD's mission for a second. I mean, they say that what they want to do is get at the root cause of poverty. But truly, the root cause of poverty is sin. And the remedy for that is Christ. And it's not just material poverty that we have to be looking out for. Sure. The church's primary mission is to bring souls to Christ. Right. And so in order to do that, you have to address the fact that poverty is caused by the sins of employers, it's caused by the sins of individuals, it's caused by the sins of employees. All of these sins are what bring about the suffering. Suffering, of course, is a curse from Adam and Eve anyway. Sure. But all of that, yes, we have an obligation to try and help people and to help alleviate their suffering, but you can't eradicate it. Right. Jesus said, the poor you will always have with you. You will not always have. So the church, as the church, and Evangelii Nuntiandi, which is an apostolic, what was
exhortation.
It? Exhortation.
From Paul VI.
Yes, specifically states you cannot divide the evangelical character or the evangelistic character of charity work from the charity itself.
Well said. One last work here before we head to a break, another group, Interfaith Worker Justice. That just rings of radical, socialist everything.
Yeah, now the thing about Interfaith Worker Justice, we've got 8 grantees that are members of them. And I'm just going to kind of go through the very basics of it because we wound up collecting almost 100 pages on this one coalition itself.
Wow, that's quite a bit. It's 5%.
Yeah, it's a lot. Kim Bobo is the founder and executive director of Interfaith.
That's not a nickname, folks. That's the real name.
She went to what was called the New School for Social Research. Now, the New School is a Marxist, a neo-Marxist organization. It is set up to spread neo-Marxist thoughts on what they call the Frankfurt School. It is neo-Marxism. So she got her economics degree from them. Since 2001, Bobo has keynoted at least 8 different major dinners for the Democrat Socialists of America. In 2009, she participated in a panel discussion titled Getting to Work, and what that stressed were the teachings of Karl Marx. And in fact, one of the guys says, we're going to talk about things, and as Karl Marx once said, oh yes, and I'm going to quote Karl Marx, very bold, right out in the front, he said that that's exactly what they were going to be focusing on.
Getting to work doesn't mean getting to your place of employment.
No.
It means getting down to work to
Yes.
get socialism and Marxism going.
Absolutely.
Right. Sure.
Her executive assistant, Kim Bobo's executive assistant, is a guy named Eric Boria. Eric Boria got his degree from Loyola University in Chicago, and he organized as he was getting his degree in what do I have? Sociology. He used to go to American Sociological Association meetings, and he used to organize what were called the Marxist roundtables in the Marxist section of the American Sociological Meeting forums.
There's a whole list of things
yeah,
here.
I can't imagine
socialism,
why.
Marxism, socialism.
Paul Sherry, he was a founding member. He's currently the public policy director for Washington, D.C. office. And he was a major open advocate for abortion, homosexuality. He even signed a letter, an open letter, supporting Bill Clinton's decision to veto that horrible partial birth abortion
thing, back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So all of these folks are on Interfaith Worker Justice, and how many grantees, how many groups getting Catholic money are in that group?
We've got 8 grantees that are affiliates of Interfaith Worker Justice. And just to be clear, we went through all of their leadership. They are thoroughly filled with Marxists, by name Marxists.
We're going to take a break here. We're going to come back. We're going to wrap this up, and we're going to ask you the question. I'll give you an advance. Lots of people know I don't always do that, just because you guys are cool. Should this office be shut down? We'll be back with the answer right after this.
Catholics are born for combat.
And having the right ammunition to defend and learn the faith is easy. Just aim your browser at churchmilitant.tv. Go to our login page and sign up by clicking on the premium member icon. Then you and your family can choose from hundreds of on-demand programs, all for about 33 cents a day.
Become a premium member of churchmilitant.tv today.
Hello and welcome back. We're wrapping up our show here with Michael Hitchborn and Rob Gasper. I keep stumbling over your name.
It's difficult.
From the American Life League, who again have produced this 2,000-page report detailing violation after violation after violation, with nearly 40% of all of the grantees who received money from your Catholic money from the collection plate in 2011, 2012, who simply are promoting with your money. Again, this is what you got to understand: your money. Abortion, contraception, homosexuality, Planned Parenthood, you name it. The whole rogues gallery. This has sort of come back to life now. This stuff was going on back in the 70s, the early 70s, when
Sure.
the CCHD office was, had started, and back then it was just called the CHD, as you know, the Campaign for Human Development. They kind of got busted a little bit, and so they stuck Catholic in front of them. Of course, we know about using the name Catholic, and these charges have kind of kept coming around and coming around. And the reason they keep coming around is because they were never fixed.
Right.
So tell us very quickly. You guys did a bunch of reports, issued a bunch of reports. We formed the Reform CCHD Now Coalition, got a lot of exposure out there. That kind of rattled the cages enough that they said, oh, we're going to do, and I love this, we're going to do an internal reform. We're going to review ourselves and go, oh, that was a bad thing to do, and we're going to issue a bunch of new guidelines. And then they don't follow their own guidelines. This is the most violations in any year you've looked, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So after the reforms, you can remember, 2010 was the reform,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
2010 was the self-reform of the group, and then on further, this is 2,000 pages of violations. This looks like Obamacare.
Right.
2,000 pages of Obamacare. I mean, of violations.
Ours is much more readable. By the way.
And it makes sense. This makes sense, and this is based on morality. This office has been, this program, CCHD, has been nailed multiple times. It's been accused multiple times. Those accusations have been proven true over and over. And all they keep doing is just, oh, we'll reform ourselves, and then they don't. Should this program be shut down?
I'll let Rob answer separately from me, but at least as far as I'm concerned, I will say I think that in order to affect real change, they're going to have to shut it down, at least for a time. I think that in order to make sure that they have all of their ducks in a row and that everything is working, they as the bishops, the USCCB as the branch, as a body of the bishops, they're going to have to do not just a review of their procedures, which is what they always talk about whenever they get flagged for the problems. They say, oh, our procedure, this leaked and that leaked, and we didn't quite follow this procedure, and we need to make sure that our procedure, just all about the procedure. But they never talk about the personnel. Personnel is policy. In order to determine and to make sure that this program is perfectly in line with church teaching, they've got to go through and make sure all of the people that are operating this program are thoroughly in line with church teaching themselves, that they absolutely understand not just principles of social justice, but also principles of morality. What they try to parse things down in, well, how remote is remote when it comes to material cooperation. If you're asking that question, you've already crossed the line. Right. You've got to make sure that if there is any chance that Catholic money is going towards these horrible organizations, they've got to make sure that they don't give them money. Rob?
I'll agree for the most part there with that assessment. Yes, as it stands, with this pile of paper, this amount of problems, something needs to be fixed. And it goes deeper than
Let me interrupt you just in case somebody joined later or heard something. You have given this to not only individual bishops sort of flown around and carried it around in tow, but the CCHD office that we're talking about that is doing and committing these violations has all this information, and they shut you down. They did not want anything to do with you. They scheduled an appointment with you after a month of trying, then they canceled it, and now they won't return your calls.
That's a national CCHD, that's correct. Now, I have to say I've made some good contacts with a lot of the local CCHD efforts, but they...
Yeah, this is national.
This is, right now, it's in National's ball court, and they need to do something with it. Good contacts with locals, the local CCHD directors. Some are really wanting to do the right thing, but they're taxed enough as it is, as far as a lot of the times they're not just the CCHD coordinator for their diocese, they're also the life coordinator, they're also the secretary of this and that and the other thing, and the bishop is also tied up. So yeah, it comes back to national. National needs to take a deeper look here beyond a review and renewal and be serious about this. The guidelines that were reformed, follow them. That's the first step. And yes, maybe take a breather, that might help, but a good CCHD is possible, I think. The idea on paper...
Just not with these people.
Perhaps not.
Perhaps not. I know I'm not going to get into that there, but on paper, marrying the principles of subsidiarity and solidarity on a local level, trying to help empower the poor to help fix their own situations, but doing it in a Catholic way, I think is a good idea. It can be done, but this isn't how to do it.
I mean, this is horrible. This is truly atrocious.
Yes.
You know, it's $3 million, essentially $2.9 million of Catholic money. You're fleeced. You're fleeced. Somebody stands up there, you know, there's either a little announcement in the bulletin or, you know, the priest stands up or whoever it is. Again, these people are innocent. They don't know. They're just being told, doing what they're told to do. They haven't done this investigation. And you stand up there thinking, you write your check, whatever, and you throw it in a little CCHD envelope Sunday, drop it in the basket the Sunday before Thanksgiving in most dioceses. And that's it. Off your money goes, and you're thinking you've done a nice thing, which in your intention you have.
Sure.
And all of a sudden the money gets spent on, you know, abortion groups and, you know, prostitution and making sure that if you're a prostitute you're wearing sensible shoes, and you know, on and on and on. You know, this needs to be fixed. This needs to be fixed. I mean, I certainly don't speak for the Catholic world, but as a fellow Catholic, my hat's off to both of you for this. This is months and months, and I know because we've gotten emails and talked and things over all of these months. This is months of work, folks, at very late hours, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Yep. You know, 9 days a week, 73 hours a day. You know, and essentially out of what? Out of the goodness of your hearts, because you see these problems in the church and want to help the body of Christ. I mean, that's what this is.
Sure. Well, let's face it. We're never going to win a victory for the culture of life if we have agents within the Catholic Church that are acting against us or undermining us or trying to not necessarily of themselves stop us, but are acting in a way and supporting the enemies that are acting against us. We're not going to get anywhere as long as the tracks are being pulled out from underneath us.
Yeah, that's a valid point. We'd like to remind you, on the page you're watching this video, there is a link so you can go to this report yourself. Please don't send us any letters asking us to send this. It weighs about 9 pounds. But you know, go on, click on it, look through all the groups, read it for yourself. And a very good thing to do, besides just having Rob and Mike make these phone calls, mostly Rob, to all the different dioceses, is make your own phone calls. Get in touch. You know, this is we're one collective body, and we need to do something about this. That's why we're doing this show. That's why you guys have done this work. So, any closing thoughts, guys?
I thank you very much for having us on the show.
Yes.
I think that the more we can reach individual Catholics and help them to understand truly what the problem is, please pray for our bishops. Mm-hmm. The bishops, they cannot have the strength to do what they need to do if they don't have the food of the prayers that we are called to give them.
Absolutely.
I think that if we pray for our bishops, that is the best foundation that we can have for renewal in the church.
Prayer and sacrifice.
Absolutely.
Prayer and sacrifice. Rob,
That's a big report, and I understand if the people don't have time to read the entire thing, sure. But it's worth it. Take a look at it and get in contact with your local dioceses, especially. Get to know your local diocesan directors. Mm-hmm. Those people need your help. When invited, sometimes there's local committees in your diocese. Get there. Let's renew the church from the inside. And pray for your bishops, just like Michael said. Give them the food to continue.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, God bless, guys. God bless all of you. Please, again, go on, click, read the report, get involved, pray and sacrifice for the bishops, and get out there and get involved in the work of the restoration of the faith. God love you. Michael Voris.